All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another showcase that we're doing here with the Round Rock ISD Professional Development Department. I'm showcasing some of the incredible training, learning, and opportunities going on around our district. We're always looking to share from one campus or department to another so we can collectively get smarter together. And today, I'm lucky to be joined by Courtney Acosta and Julie Presley. Courtney is the principal at McNeil High School, and Julie is one of the counselors at McNeil. And they have recently, I think, finished up a book study on their campus on this book right here called Work Rules. It talks a lot about leadership and different systems and structures you can set up in a company or a campus. And they want to share a little bit about what they learned. Work Rules, it's not maybe the most traditional book you'd pick for a education leadership team, but I think Julie and Courtney are going to tell us some of the great things that they learned as a group. So if we could start with, maybe you guys can just kind of say where this started from, kind of what some of the thought process behind leading this book study, and quickly introduce yourselves as well, and then I'll turn it over to you. So what brought you to this point?
Okay, I'll go. So it happened last year, and I had one of my teachers that kind of expressed a concern that we didn't have leadership learning opportunities on our campus that weren't geared towards being in administration, being an assistant principal or being a principal. So we really, at that point, realized that we had a need on our campus for people that wanted to be in leadership positions and didn't have any training necessarily for that. So I was really fortunate to go to the A&M Leadership Institute with Dr. Presley, Julie's husband, and it was really neat because in one of the pre-assignments that they had for the Institute, they had Laszlo Bock, the author of the book, talking about the book and his thought processes in the book and what he shares in there. And it just seemed like a really cool opportunity to learn leadership and management from a very different outside the box lens, because everyone knows that Google is about as far outside the box as you can get. So from there, I got the book, read it with my associate principal, and then we decided it would be a really good learning opportunity for our staff as a whole. So we sent out a mass email to everybody saying, if you want to be a part of this, then join us, and here's the dates and times and what it's going to look like.
So you invited folks from your leadership team or folks campus-wide to participate? It
was across the campus. We have obviously principal, assistant principals, counselors, teachers, paraprofessionals. It was a really wide range, which made it an even more unique experience, I think.
And I think when she sent the email, it was basically, this is just for anyone who wants to learn more about leadership. And so it wasn't really, and she specifically said in the email, this doesn't mean you have to be wanting to be an administrator. It can be a leadership role of any kind. So I think that was really exciting to be able to just be associated and to collaborate with all teachers, department chairs, assistant principals, just anyone who wanted to put their hat in the ring.
Yeah, that is, it's great. And I know they even talk a lot in the book, about where that leadership comes from any position in an organization or on a campus. It's not, looking at the org chart. It's everybody, together, and everybody wants that opportunity to learn and to share some of those ideas. So Julie, not from you're not a principal, you're not in that role, but kind of what was the pulse of the non-traditional campus leaders as they learned through this book and learned through one another?
I think everyone was just so excited to hear just kind of the Google way, and then how can we incorporate the Google way into the educational setting. Just learning about, a lot of the book was about their hiring process and us being able to kind of reflect on that, and how can we apply some of the things that they do in Google in our educational setting. And we found there were a lot of things that we already kind of do, and that our administration has. One of the big things, that I'm kind of jumping here, but one of the big things that they really talked about is how to be transparent as a leader. And so everyone, it makes the organization, or for us, the campus, feel like everyone is included, where it's a very inclusive place. And I think our administration here definitely does do that. But thinking about it, in a business versus the educational setting, it was very eye-opening.
Very good. Can you think of a couple? I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you think of a couple of those crossover things that you did see? You talk about transparency and how important it is, to see that and to really feel it. So what are maybe a couple of the things that you guys experience at McNeil that gives that vibe and that atmosphere?
Well, one of the things that we weren't necessarily doing, but I think it's just because we just hadn't thought about it, is like at the leadership meetings, being able to inform everyone of what is discussed in the leadership meetings. It's not just this inclusive group. They really want everyone to be a part. It's just kind of hard to do that logistically. So we started sending out administration started sending out the leadership minutes to the whole campus, so everyone is informed of what was discussed at the leadership meeting. Another thing that we really talked about, or that I feel like has been a really big thing here on our campus, is being able to feel like there's kind of the open door policy, feeling like if you do have an issue, you can definitely bring it forward and not feel intimidated to do something like that. And creativity is huge, and obviously that's a big thing with Google, is being able to be creative. And I think it's really encouraged here on our campus, and just bring forth your ideas, and then we can all put it out there and talk about it. And I think that's something that they definitely do. Collaboration's huge at Google, and I think that's something that what was another thing, and I'm all over the place here, but I get really excited. But another thing, when we start thinking about their end product, obviously is technology and what they can do with it, where our end product is our students and how we can better serve our students. And so our teachers would always say, oh, when I read that chapter, I was really relating that to my end product, on how I can better serve my student. And so being able to think about and explain that to students too, hey, we learned this from Google, and it's a big thing when you're collaborative. And this is the 3 things that we learned. So you want to be collaborative, communication's huge, and you want to have those writing skills. So our teachers got really excited about, oh, I'm going to go and tell my students, like, this is what the Google guy said. If you learn these 3 traits, this is going to really, really benefit you in life and business and everything that you do. And so it really helps to think about it in how can we serve students and teach students the Google way, kind of.
Sure, and really for you guys at everybody in K-12, we're growing leaders, for the future, and as much as we can help get them ready for the type of working environments and the type of collaboration that's going to be required, of all of our students when they graduate. I think to get any career, they're going to need that piece. So Courtney, I know one of the nice things was we were able to reach out, or you guys were able to reach out to our Google rep here in Texas. Kevin was able to get you kind of a field trip to take your team to one of the Google offices to kind of learn from each other, but also learn from some of the other departments. I heard at Google that we traditionally don't get to interact with much. We get the education side, but I heard you also got to kind of interact with some of their HR team and talk about hiring. And just tell us a little bit about how that day went when you're able to take your team, and then specifically anything from that day that you want to share with everybody else.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. Kevin Hodges was phenomenal. I know other schools have taken leadership teams and groups of teachers over there, but it was really cool to take that group that had really been immersed in this book and go there with a very different purpose than just seeing the cool things at Google. We really honed into their practices in terms of hiring and interviewing and what that looks like and expectations. And so Kevin brought in one of his lead HR people and then somebody from her department. And we were able to talk to them about what that looks like and some things that, some of it are too far outside the box for public education, but there's a lot of things, and I know it probably happens on other campuses, where you do bring teachers in that you're interviewing and have them teach a class and see how they respond and see how they react to your particular demographic of students. And We also talked a lot about, they have, I mean, their interview process is 6 months long, which we could not feasibly do in education. But we talked about having multiple levels of interviews in a very short timeline, but where they get to see a lot of different people within your campus culture. And so those people can come back and really talk about, are they a fit for our culture, and are they a fit for the McNeil way, and all of that. So we took away a lot of really good experiences from that. In the beginning, he talked about too, one of the things that a couple of the teachers really grabbed onto was the idea of their, they have 20% of their time where they're allowed to just work on projects that are of interest to them. And so I know a lot of the teachers were thinking about in their classrooms, how can I give kids time in my class to do things that are of interest, and of course related to what we're teaching and the TEKS and all that, but what could that possibly look like to really give a kid choice in what they're learning as far as their interest goes. So that was really cool. He talked about some of the 10X projects, of course, the Google Glass, they always talk about, in the self-driving cars they talk about, and how those come to be, and how people will spend all their time coming up with these amazing ideas, and then they get to a point where it's like, well, that's not going to work, so they drop it and they pick up something else and they start working on that. And they have these teams that are constantly forming and breaking up and reforming, and they're working with all different people all the time. And that does happen in education. Whenever you have one student that you're talking about, there's this group of teachers for this kid and this group of teachers for this kid. And so, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, that you're troubleshooting a project almost, and what can we do to get the best out of this kid and to support them with the best support. So it was just a really kind of overall neat experiences for the teachers. And for me, I mean, I love just being able to talk about leadership with the teachers and for them to see my style. And, you know, nobody wants to be a principal that's thought of as just sitting in their office and working on paperwork and emails. So it was neat to be just out and about with the teachers and talking about things that are really interesting and different, and not even just educationally.
Sure. So you guys are you finishing up the book study. We're kind of coming up to the end of a school year also. So looking forward, next year, what are just maybe one or two, and you don't have to make any big decisions right now, but what are one or two things that just you're mulling around in your mind that you might, as a system level on your campus, might do a little differently, or something might add next year based off what you learned in the book?
No.
Okay. We talked a lot about, well, first of all, the teachers that were involved really wanted to continue on with other book studies like this, and not necessarily something that was educational. So now they're all, they're sending emails about, what about this book and what about that book? And it's really exciting to have a culture of learning and reading on your campus where people are really interested. In addition, I have another teacher that wants to lead a book study with this particular book for teachers that kind of found out about it on the back end, but got, there's been a lot of hype about it. So now they're excited and want to do it too. So we're thinking about having another round of this.
So they can read in the summer. I think some people were worried about time. So this gives them time to read in the summer and then start back in the fall with the same study.
As far as hiring practices, we've talked a lot about what I had said earlier, what it would look like to have as many people involved as possible in these interviews, to make sure it's not overwhelming, but to really think about, is this a fit for our campus? And it's neat because we talked a lot throughout the 12 weeks that we had this study. We talked a lot about our particular campus culture and what that is and why it's so important. And so it was neat to have those defining conversations, and then it would be very easy now to have someone come in and say, is this a fit? Do they meet all these criteria, and do they have the thought process that we would want them to have? And so mostly what we've talked about are like the hiring processes. For me, as the principal, it's been really cool to get this amount of input through this lens from my staff, and not just teachers, not just leadership team, and not just my counselors team who, we have those weekly meetings, but really from a pretty good sized cross section of my campus. And I mean, it was every 2 weeks I had kind of a temperature check on the campus of how things were. And so that was really cool. And it's definitely something that I will continue in the future. I just have to pick the right books.
Well, that's great, and it sounds like it started a lot of great conversations, and a lot of thinking moving forward around some of these processes, in either our departments or on our campuses that maybe we don't stop to think about a lot. Whether it is kind of the way we structure interviews when we're hiring, that path that a potential teacher takes, from when they put in their resume to when they're actually sitting there in the interview, really looking at those kinds of processes. So before we do tune out, any last words, Julie or Courtney?
One of the statements that he brought out in the book that just resonates in my mind all the time is talented people are attracted to Google because they're empowered to change the world. Well, that to me, that's just like a statement that is huge on our campus within our culture. Our administration does give us the freedom to think outside the box and to be creative and to have a statement like that. We want people to think they want to work at McNeil because they're empowered to change the world. And what better thing to do than to be able to impact students in that way. So that's just a real big thing that I had highlighted in all kinds of underlining in the book. That was a really big deal to me that I thought was so important.
Yeah, and I had two that kind of hit me throughout the book, and one of them Julie kind of hit on, and it said default to open and give people as much information as you can because they will make better informed decisions at whatever level they are at if they have more information. So I think moving forward, that is something that will continue is how can we make sure everybody gets access to more information. And then the other one that I absolutely loved that I feel like is very much a part of McNeil is the culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that one for me just kind of personifies the school, and the culture is very strong. It is deep rooted, and it's just a cool place to be. But it's even more exciting to talk about what that culture really is. And so this was a neat opportunity as a principal to get with your staff and have those kinds of conversations. And it's not just your leadership team or your counselor team that you're constantly meeting with, but any staff member that wants to have that conversation. It was really cool.
Sure, building those connections, and I love that default to open too. That's our lens that we start everything with, and we're gonna grow as a district, beyond McNeil.
Nice.
So.
Maybe.
But you guys are leading the way, at least with this, looking at this particular book, and other campuses, definitely want to highlight book studies that have been successful there as well. So if you're watching this and you do want to share some of the successes you've had this year, reach out to the professional development department. And also I'll have this posted shortly on our Medium blog, and it'll be, sent out through Twitter, Facebook, all kinds of places. Everybody knows where to find it. You can also go to pd.roundrockisd.org. It'll be there. Because I know a lot of those teachers that we were talking about are probably busy teaching class right now, so they weren't able to weigh in. So please, when you do get a chance to read it, if you're a McNeil teacher that was part of this book study and this experience, add some comments to that blog post so we can hear from you as well. And we'll share that learning also with the rest of the district and everybody beyond who's watching this and taking part in learning with Round Rock ISD. So Julie and Courtney, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to be signing off. So thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Bye.